Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, Tech Interview Guide. I'm here to help people get better at resumes and cover letters and career prep and career advancement and interviews and all that kind of stuff. So welcome to the stream. It's Sunday morning. It is June 5th. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, we really crushed that diversity in tech fundraiser last month. Appreciate that. So I bumped it up a tiny bit. We're going to keep raising money for the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in doing a donate, you can do !donate in chat and see some information about that. But yeah, the dragon giveaways are all done. But looking forward to continuing to raise some money and then meeting that group in a couple of weeks to actually give them that money. So I'm pretty excited for that. Let's see what else we got going on. We've got a couple of resume reviews we're going to do today. Oops. I meant to actually change this. So resume reviews and career prep. Let me just change the title of the stream here real quick. Career advancement interview prep. Diversity in tech fundraiser. Ask me anything, Q&A, etc. There. Cool. Send that over. We'll throw devs on there to welcome to start attracting some folks from 100 devs over here. I do want to have some people from 100 devs. So if you're watching this on YouTube later on, if you're part of 100 devs, I would love to have you on the stream as a guest. So if you go check out my YouTube channel, I have had people on the show as guests, and we have kind of like a little back and forth interview style kind of conversation. And I would love to hear about your journey into tech and kind of what you've been up to, how you've been preparing, how you're actually working towards getting a job in tech, and you know, career development and things like that. So I'd love to have folks on the stream. You just need to reach out to me. So you can find my contact information on the website. I use the same username on a lot of social platforms. So information over here on how to connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. You can send me a message on any of those platforms, and I'd love to chat with people about being a guest on the stream as well. We've got a couple of resume reviews to go through today. So I'm going to go find those. And then, let's see, it's going to be resume 1. And I'm going to download this one. That is resume 2. Cool. So we got a couple of these resumes that we're going to go through. And if you're interested in getting a free resume review, you can submit it to this link over here. There's a link on the website that you can go find. And I do free resume reviews. And you can give me a little bit of context with it, and I'll be like reading that context with the resume reviews. And then we'll get these sort of like snipped out a little later and put up on a playlist on YouTube as well, where I have some other resume reviews. And it's just my thoughts and perspectives on what makes a good resume. And so, yeah, you're welcome to chime in anytime. I love having folks like drop by and chat and just leave commentary and things like that in chat as well. So let me just double check that audio and everything's coming through here. We could do this real quick. Gotta sit through my own ads. Good times, good times. Cool. What's going on, everybody? Hope that everybody else is doing well. We've got a new viewer in chat. Hello. So yeah, I'm just going to hang out. We're going to do a couple of resume reviews, maybe do a question or two from the Discord community. So I've got a Discord community as well. And you can also send me messages on Discord. And if you'd like to drop by the chat and ask an anonymous question, I have a little chat bot running over here. And you can send a whisper to that chat bot on Twitch during a live stream, and it'll show up as an anonymous question. And I do that to give people like kind of a safe place that they can come and ask questions, because not everybody likes having their name attached to a question. And so we'll we'll handle those as they come in. So anytime you want to drop by the live stream and drop some questions in chat, you're welcome to do that. But yeah, for the resume reviews that we're going to get through, so the people that sent in the resumes, they have they've given like a little bit of context as far as like what they want, what they're looking for, and so we'll be kind of diving in on some of the notes that they give to give a little bit of context to what their resume is, and then we'll review those on the stream. Like I said, maybe we'll get to one or two questions in the Discord. But if folks drop by and they ask questions in chat, I like to address those kind of as we go as well. So I'll be staying hydrated as we go. So excuse any pauses while I kind of drink my breakfast. And then we'll dive in on some of this. All right, let's see. Trying to remember which was which here. I had two resumes come in, and I'm trying to remember which one I stored as which one. Okay. All right, so I think we'll start on the resume reviews, and if people drop by, awesome, and we'll go from there. So let's switch over to this screen, and again, so just for a bit of history and context on me, I've been an engineering manager and a director of engineering at several jobs, and I've been part of hiring processes and so on. So I've got a pretty good feel for like what makes a good resume, and what helps sort of stand out on a resume and so on. And so I like to share those perspectives on the stream. But I also tell people, don't ever just listen to my advice. Always get advice from other people and listen to advice of other people. Don't ever just listen to my perspectives. So. All right, so with as with most resume reviews, I usually start with a piece of advice that says, opinions are like armpits. Everybody's got a couple and some of them smell. You don't have to take my advice. These are just my thoughts, and I will give a bit of context to these resume reviews that we're doing today, and then I'll get these snipped out and put up on YouTube later on. So the first one came in anonymously and said, I was currently promoted to a junior software engineer from an intern role, and I'm just looking for things I need to change and update on the resume. So at a first glance, I would say if you're working, if this person's going to continue to work in India, then having the location on the resume is probably okay. But if you're looking for other like remote types of jobs and so on, I would probably take the location off the resume. I think it can subject you to geographic bias, especially as companies are starting to kind of toy with the idea of like going back to the office. They might start biasing against people based on geography. And so I would typically take the geography off the resume here completely. They've got their contact info, email, LinkedIn, GitHub. All those are good links to have on there. I think that those are fine. As a hiring manager, I'm going to probably spend more time looking at your GitHub than your LinkedIn, but I may look at the LinkedIn just to see how well you kind of coordinate the other context that you have on the page with what you have on LinkedIn. In this case, the person put their education first and foremost. I think that that's okay, but now that you've got professional experience, that kind of starts to sort of take precedent over other things that you have on here, like your coursework and the education and so on. So for me as a hiring manager, I would want to see a skills block at the very top, because I need to figure out in a hurry, are you qualified for my job? And that's not necessarily like, you know, you're doing a pretty good job here, like putting bold on some of these skills that you're using on the job. But I don't see like just a skills block on here. Oh, you do. It's like right here. I would prefer to see this skills block up at the very top, because you're showing me a whole lot more about you and what you're capable of doing and the value that you bring to my company. But it's like all the way down here on the page. If I zoom out, it's like down here at the bottom. Me as a hiring manager, I like to see that as the very first thing, because I want to see at a glance, in a hurry, are you qualified for the job post that I have open? And so I like to see that as the very first thing on the resume, and then from there show me like any relevant work experience, and then for yourself, because you've only been working for a little while, having project code on here I think is still fine. As far as separating out the coursework here from your education, I would probably try to find a way to like combine these. This is taking up a lot of vertical space that I think you could probably compress by, you know, if these are the courses that you took as part of this education, then I would just make these some bullet points underneath here. So I would just say Bachelor of Technology, Computer Science and Engineering, and then underneath that put bullet points of data structures, algorithm analysis, computer networking, systems programming, and so on. And I would just make those like maybe 2 bullet points of like lists of things. So one would be like, well, the first one should always be like the programming skills that you learned, and then the second one would be like other things. So the first one would be like your systems programming, computer networking, operating systems, maybe software methodology. In fact, I would do systems programming, then software methodology, and then database management, and then operating systems. I would put those 4 in that order on that first bullet point. The second bullet point, then I would do like data structures, algorithms, internet technology. I don't know that you really need to call that out anymore. I mean, that's kind of an expectation in a lot of what we do in the world today. So I don't know that you explicitly need to call that one out, but I would add those as bullet points under the education, because that was the coursework that you took at that as part of that education. From there, so they mentioned in their email that they just got promoted to a junior role from an internship, so congratulations on that. And I like that you're calling out the current skills that you're using on the job. I think that this is really important to do. So even though I want this skills block to be at the very top, where I can see that you know Python and TypeScript and JavaScript and so on. TypeScript also, I believe, has a capital S, so you want to make sure that you capitalize things properly. One thing that's interesting here is you don't specifically call out JavaScript. Now, writing in Angular and React and Node, I mean, that implies JavaScript, but a non-technical recruiter looking at your resume or CV may not make that connection. They may look at this and go, they don't currently use JavaScript on their job. So they might not, they might pass on that. So again, having the skills block at the top lets them know that you do JavaScript, but make sure that you're adding JavaScript in here as well, just for the non-technical people that might be looking at your resume. You could probably shorten these months to just 3-letter words, so FEB, DECJAN. It'll just shorten those up a little bit more, just so the date doesn't take a huge amount of space. And then another internship role, developed a blogging application. I would probably want to see like what technology did you do this in. You built an e-commerce app in Django, but you don't really tell me like what you used to build these other things. Was it all Django? Because I think you could just tell me in one bullet point, like all work done in Python, Django. Again, people that are not technical that are looking at this, they're like, okay, you claim to know Python, but I don't actually see Python anywhere in your work history here. I don't see JavaScript anywhere in the work history in the projects here. So you kind of need to call that out a little more explicitly. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more context about like how you built some of these things. So REST API using Django REST framework, that's fine. And this one you specifically said you did Django as well. But if these other applications were also done in Python and Django, then I think you could just have a single bullet point here that says all projects or all work done in Python and Django, or similar to what you did here, like full stack apps using Python, Django, JavaScript, or whatever that you did at that particular internship. Now, the fact that it was only December to January, that's only a 2-month long internship. That's a pretty short internship, especially considering that some companies kind of close down over holidays for winter holidays and things like that. That feels like a very short internship to me. So that kind of stands out to me as something that's a little odd. So you may need to have a good story to explain why that internship was short. Develop authentication authorization system using Node and Express. That's fine. You could probably take these periods off the end. Bullet points don't need to be grammatically correct sentences. So I think you could probably take the periods off of here, especially since you don't have periods on the ends of some of these other lines. You want to be consistent about that. I would probably try to find a way to shorten this bullet point to not wrap that one word onto a new line. Try to keep your bullet points short. I would say this is about the maximum length that you want a bullet point, because you do want these dates to kind of stay isolated over here. Like if you can imagine, if this was the cutoff right here, and I'm kind of moving with my mouse, if you imagine that the cutoff was right here, then all these date ranges would be kind of in a visual column of like all the dates kind of stacked on top of each other. And so I generally advise people, like, don't let text go underneath those dates, but you also don't want to wrap a bullet point onto multiple lines. So I would try to find a way to reduce the amount of text on here. Developed a small API coded in JavaScript with the help of Express and Node.js. I would just say developed an API in JavaScript. So you don't have to say it was small, and you can just say with instead of coded in. So developed an API with JavaScript, Express, Node, Mongo. Designed to short a long URL. So I would actually reword this whole line. I would say developed a short URL generator using JavaScript, Express, Node, and Mongo. And just like that'll keep that whole line really short. Because the grammar on designed a short to long URL won't make sense to a lot of people. Like, I know that what you built was a URL shortener, but some other people aren't going to make that connection. So you need to explicitly say developed an API or developed a URL shortener API using JavaScript, Express, Node, Mongo. Deliver results in any application with a single endpoint. So the word deliver is a present tense verb, and you want to make sure that you always write these things in sort of past tense. So delivered in the past. Delivered results in any application with a single endpoint. This needs some clarification here. This kind of sounds like you're trying to do like a GraphQL kind of thing where they only had to hit one endpoint and it did everything. As a developer, I don't want like one endpoint that does everything. I want multiple endpoints that I can hit to do like just one little task. As a manager, this tells me that you built a lot of logic and a lot of responsibility into one endpoint, and now I have a single point of failure. So to me, this stands out as a negative thing on a resume. Returns JSON to the endpoint to make data handling easy. I think you're over-explaining what all this stuff is doing. You could just say developed a JSON API, and then you could remove this whole bullet point and just put the word JSON in front of API. I think that would be all you'd need there. I like that you're linking over to source code on these projects. If it is something that you can actually deploy publicly, I would love to see this hosted somewhere. I don't know that you necessarily need the GitHub icon next to this, and if you want to keep the GitHub icon, that's fine, but I'd probably put a space in between the icon and the word source code. And I would also make it like an underline kind of thing so that people visually looking at it know that it's something they can click on. I happen to notice it because I hovered over it, but I think it would be better if you actually made it a different color, put an underline on it so that people would recognize that as an actual link. Developed a full stack laundry management system coded in Angular, Node, Mongo, and Express. Okay. Developed authentication auth to role-based access system. So if this is part of that laundry system, then you've already told me that you developed the application. And so you don't really need to say that you developed in here. You could just say like included role-based authentication authorization. I think that would be all you need. As far as like how you're building this stuff out, I think this is fine. Developer tools really aren't going to matter very much to companies. They're not really going to care what editor you use or the fact that you can use, Git bash or any kind of shell. Like, as long as you can get your job done, that's really all they care about. What tools you use are really inconsequential. So most companies aren't going to care at all to see developer tooling on here. It's just taking up space. Technologies and frameworks, I would probably break these into two separate things. You're listing out frameworks and then like a system level kind of thing, a database, Linux You could probably do that as part of your systems. Git and GitHub are tools. REST and API development, that's not really a technology or a framework. That's just what you're familiar with as far as like developing APIs. And then unit testing. So what I would do instead is I would break this into maybe a couple of other things. So I think I would get rid of the developer tools, and then I would have a second one here for like frameworks and libraries, where you list out React, Angular, Node, Express, maybe which library you used for Mongo and Postgres, and then which libraries you used for unit testing. And then I would have another bullet point after that called like, system tools and technologies or something. And that's where you'd list Docker, Linux, Git, and GitHub, things like that. Putting REST and API development, like you've kind of already told me that you've got that kind of experience in your project work. Is it bad to just call out that you know how to build RESTful APIs? I think it's fine, but it's going to be like a really short thing to put on here. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of this. Like for me, I've done RESTful APIs, I've done GraphQL APIs, I've tinkered with gRPC APIs, and so I could like fill up a bullet point list with some of these different things. But you've kind of already told me that you can build, APIs through your project work here. So I don't know that you need to explicitly call that out as a skill. Extracurricular, I like seeing extracurricular stuff, and I think it's fine if you need the room on the page. I think it's okay to put this on here. Written technical blogs with over 35,000 views on Medium. Okay, so you do have a link over to your Medium, that's fine. Mentoring, teaching about different technologies through workshops and videos. So I think you could probably get rid of like blogger and mentor, because you're telling me that you're a blogger here and here, so this becomes very redundant. You tell me that you do mentoring and that you're teaching, and so you don't need to call yourself a mentor here as well. I would probably, and because you're giving me the link to Medium over here, you don't really need to call out Medium over here. And because if you think about how you've presented these things over here, like with the company, you've got the company name and then your role. So what I would probably do over here for extracurricular, you've already told me you're a blogger, you give me a link to Medium. I would actually call that like, Medium link or something like that, not just link. That way you can move Medium off of here. Because what you're showing me over here is like the location of where that was. What I would do over here is like mentoring at the interview codes or something like that, and actually put that next to the word over here. Software engineering virtual experience program participant. This doesn't tell me anything at all about the value that this brings to my company. Like, I don't know what the virtual experience program is. You don't tell me anything about it. Where these other ones, you do give me a couple of bullet points explaining like what this is about, but you don't for these. So this has zero value to me as a hiring manager. You don't tell me anything about it other than, they're banks, they're financial corporations, that's fine. But like, I have no idea what you did here. So it has zero value to me. One thing you could probably do is shrink your font size a little bit if you need a little more room on the page. The font size does look a little big. I would typically tell people like keep things to like a 10-point font. Now I do kind of see where you're using like the location here over and over, and so it does kind of make sense down here that you're showing the location of the website or the company where you're doing that work. But where that feels a little inconsistent is like up here for your experience, you're putting the location of your job on the left side of the page. And so again, you want to keep some consistency there with that. So that'd be like a handful of advice I would give on that resume. Yeah, you're welcome to kind of take that advice or not. I'm always happy to re-review a resume if you'd like. So yeah, hopefully that'll help you out. One last thing I might mention, these really long lines that you've got across the page, I think they do a good job of like kind of separating things out. But you're using kind of a lot of them. Like these links up here you've got underlined, but the other links like your source code and so on don't follow that pattern as well. And the font sizes here seem a little bit off. Like the font size that you're using here for like your projects seems smaller than the font size that you're using here for these extracurricular things. So I generally tell people like you get 3 font sizes for the whole page. you get one font size for your name. So I would typically do that at like 18 point to 20 point font. You get a second font size for these headings, and I would typically aim for like a 12 to 14 point font. Everything else on the page is 10 point font. Like literally highlight everything on the page, 10 point font, and then go back and change the headings to 12 point font and change your name to like an 18 or 20 point font. Just that way everything is a consistent size across the page. And I think you'll find that you'll have a little more room to put stuff in here. If it feels like really empty at that point, then I would add a little bit of extra space in between these sections, just so it doesn't feel really crammed. Because you've got a little bit of empty space in between your technical skills and extracurricular, but the empty space between your project and technical skills, to me, visually seems like less vertical space here. And so, you do want to kind of like use that page to your advantage as far as like overall spacing and layout and things like that goes. Cool. So hopefully that'll help you out. If you got other questions, you're welcome to reach out over email and let me know. What's up, GBav, EpiCat, Bets? Good to see all of you in chat. Thanks for dropping by today. Just doing a couple of resume reviews, maybe do a little bit of Discord. My wife is helping at a like a marathon run or something today. She works part-time for a race company that like puts on marathons and stuff within cities. So she had to get up at like 1:30 in the morning to like go get a whole bunch of equipment, pick up like 100 pounds of ice, get there, like start setting all the stuff up and whatever. So she's not home yet. So when she gets home, she's going to crash. So I'm going to take the kids out for the day, and we're just going to give her a nice quiet house that she can kind of chill and get some sleep and stuff like that. So I thought I'd do just a couple of quick resume reviews, maybe a couple questions, and then I'll probably bounce and like go take care of some stuff today, get a haircut, and just go hang with the boys for the day. But hope you're all doing well. GBav, what's going on down in your neck of the woods these days? You redid your resume long ago, never put it to use, just started driving for Lyft again. Cool. I mean, if you want me to take a look at a resume, I'd be happy to help you brush it up too. So I think a lot of how you present, what you do on a resume is pretty useful no matter what kind of company that you do, or what kind of company you want to work for, what kind of job you do, where you want to work. Like that presentation of skills is the same no matter what. Like whoever that hiring manager is, they need to see in a hurry what value does GBav bring to my company in order to make the determination of whether they should call you for an interview. And so a lot of the things that I kind of talk about here tend to be tech specific about like, hey, make sure you put your tech stack in your project and whatever. You're not going to have project work when you're doing Lyft driving, but you can still talk about like the customer experience and how you provide the best experience you can, and what that would mean to a company where you want to apply for another job. So happy to help out on that anytime. I mean, I'm happy to take a look at non-technical resumes as well. Driving all week, awesome. The new season of Fortnite came out, so you're gonna go home and stream. Sweet, sounds awesome. I'll try to hit up your stream a little bit later on. Cool deal. Bets has some more dragons on the way. Looking forward to you getting those. And EpiCat, good to see you as well. Got a couple things on the 3D printer going. You can watch those over at MakerDeck. Let me throw the link up for that. Twitch.tv MakerDeck. So I've got a 3D printed like scissor lift that's printing right now for one of my kids. I've got the last dragon that we're printing off for somebody that donated to the Diversity and Tech fundraiser. And so I'm still going to 3D print dragons. If you donate more than $10, I'll 3D print you a dragon and send it your way. But GBav, send me your address because I want to send you that mask and stuff that we talked about. And then on the third printer, I'm actually printing some fidget cubes. So it's like one of these infinite folding kind of things, but the different, so you can actually get this model like kind of as is, and it just prints all in one piece. The difference with what I'm printing is it comes apart. And so it actually prints as all the individual pieces. So you can print the individual blocks and you can print the little hinge pins as well. And so what we're going to try doing with the kids is figuring out, like, can we print the blocks and the hinges in different colors and then sell them to their friends and so on so that they can do, like customize a fidget cube for themselves. So we thought that would be kind of interesting and fun for the kids because they have a winter carnival at their school every year. And we've printed these fidget cubes in the past, like all as one piece, and so it's all one color, and people got a kick out of it. And I thought, well, I've got equipment that I could do these in different colors, like I could make each block a slightly different color. But then someone actually came up with a version of the model where it's all in pieces and you just assemble it yourself. And so I thought, well, what if we make a little kit out of it and people could choose what color of blocks they want. So if you want all the same color blocks, or if you want, red and green blocks, then you can like take it apart and reassemble it in any order that you like. And you could also make the hinges a different color. So if you want white hinges or yellow hinges or gold hinges or whatever. And so the idea here is that we would just print a whole bunch of these things in different colors. So the other one that's printing is a whole bunch of these in blue. I printed one in red just to see how well it, like, everything fits together. And unfortunately it does kind of break apart a little too easily. So I'm hoping, I sized up the pins a little bit, made them a tiny bit bigger. So I'm hoping that those will print a little larger. But I'm also wondering about the feasibility of how well I could get that in like a bubble envelope and do that as a giveaway or something like that in October. So I'm trying to think of what we're going to 3D print in October. So I'm going to be, so if you hang out on MakerDeck and you see me printing on MakerDeck, I'm going to be printing stuff over the next 2 months to come up with ideas for what we can do as our giveaway in October. The other idea was these little kit cards where it's like these little breakaway models. I can actually show you an example of one. Let me pull up printables. Let me go back over to that screen here for a sec. So if we look for the word kit card, so these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about here, where we can 3D print like the land speeder from Star Wars kind of thing. And so it all prints flat like this. Then you just break off these little pieces. You just get like some little cutters and you just cut off these little tabs. And then you basically put the whole thing together and then you get like a working toy out of it. Now this one in particular, I think is not commercial. So I would have to contact the actual maker of the design and say like, hey, I'm doing this as a giveaway, like as a fundraiser giveaway. Is that something that you'd be willing to participate in, or something that you'd allow me to do? Because, I can't sell Star Wars stuff. Disney would come after me in a heartbeat if I were to sell the stuff. But Fix'em Dude is an amazing designer. And so Fix'em Dude has done other things for other channels and stuff like that, like Loyal Moses. So I may reach out to Fix'em Dude and just say like, hey, I'm trying to do this fundraiser. Like, is that something that you can help me out with? And I'm sure that they'll give us something. But yeah, so that's the other idea that I had, was like, just find a whole bunch of these kit cards, print them out, and then mail them out as like packages of like, here's a whole bunch of Star Wars kit cards, like a land speeder and a TIE fighter and whatever. And then do another one of like animals or dinosaur bone, model things or whatever. Because there's all kinds of like dinosaur kit card. No, it's not on here. There's one on Thingiverse, or there's a handful of them that I saw on Thingiverse, where it's basically this kind of thing, where you get like the card of all the parts and you take them apart and then you like construct the model. So there's like a whole bunch of those kinds of little kits that you can like actually get in 3D print and so on. It's just a question of whether I can do that without a commercial license as part of like a fundraiser sort of thing. But that's the other thing that I'm thinking about doing for October, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Epiccat says, my resume will be primarily explanations of projects I've done to showcase my use of technologies. Yeah, that's a great use of the resume space, Epiccat. When you're new in the industry, you need to put a lot of emphasis on the projects to show this is how I've used the technologies that I claim to know. And then the interview process will have you demonstrate it live to show that you can actually like functionally work in a particular language or particular technology and so on. As you start to gain experience, though, as I mentioned with that last resume review, as you gain experience, though, you'll start to, that work experience will start to sort of override the prominence of the projects on your resume page. Cool, let's, so that was the first resume. We'll close that one off. Let's go over and do the second resume review. And then we'll see what else we got going on. So hello to all the other viewers hanging out with us today. I'm just going to do another resume review for the next 10-15 minutes. If you got other questions, you're welcome to drop those in chat. And I will definitely address those kind of as we go. I'm going to shrink this down here just a little bit more. All right, so let's go get some context about this resume, and then we will dive in on this one. All right, so this is another resume that I had submitted. It's anonymous, and the message that came with it says, I lost my job recently because they wanted me to do more QA engineering at a financial bank and didn't have the drive to deliver. So basically just decoding this a little bit, the person wants to be a developer, and the company wanted to move them into a QA role. And they didn't really want to be a QA engineer. They wanted to be like a full-time software developer. So the company put them on a performance improvement plan, or what we call a PIP. So after they put me on a PIP, I resigned, and I'm spending my time preparing for interviews. I have a friend at a FAANG company, and I want to update my resume to be more appealing to companies like that. So a couple of things that I'd like to offer as a suggestion here. One, never quit your job. If they put you on a performance improvement plan, sometimes that's the company's way of like covering their butt a little bit because they want you to leave. Sometimes moving you into a position that they know you're going to find undesirable so that you resign is a way to save them money, because now they don't have to pay your salary anymore, but they also don't have to pay you any kind of severance because they've let you go. So I typically tell people, if you get put on a performance improvement plan, wait it out. Like, do your best to meet, what's in the PIP. But if you're really unhappy there, let them fire you. You have a story to tell. You can just say, like, if someone says, like, why'd you leave that job? You can say, I didn't leave on very good terms because they were trying to move me into a role that I really didn't want to do. They wanted to move me into a full-time QA role. I want to be a full-time developer. And so I spent, a period of 3 months trying to do that kind of work, but I'm not suited for a full-time QA role, and I wasn't happy. And so we parted ways. You don't have to say they fired me, but you can just say, I left the company. But I didn't leave on good terms because of that. That's all you need to say. You don't have to go into the full explanation of, like, they put me on a PIP and, like, I thought it was a bunch of BS and whatever. Like, you don't want to badmouth the company at all. You can just say they wanted to move me into a position I didn't want to do. I did my best to try to accommodate that and to try to meet the expectations that they had for me, but it wasn't the kind of job that I wanted to do. And I let them know that there wasn't any other opportunity for that. So we parted ways, and just leave it at that. That's all you really need to explain. So in this person's case, they've been laid off. We can see in the resume here that they left in April 2022. So they've been unemployed now for, if we give them the benefit of the doubt and we say the end of April, then it's been all of May, and now we're into June. So it's been maybe 5 weeks that they've been unemployed. That can start to feel like a long time, but at the same time, you need time to kind of ramp up and get ready for interviews and things like that. So in some cases, in some ways, it's good that they've got effort or they've got time to put into full-time effort of finding that next job. Paint signal says in chat, creative differences. Yeah, that could be another way of putting it, but I would just say, like, they wanted to move me into a role that I wasn't qualified for. I did my best in that role, but it wasn't what I wanted to do, and so we parted ways. And just leave it at that. I don't think you really need to explain. Well, now, if they press you on and say, did you resign, or, were you asked to leave? Then you can say, I was asked to leave the company, and just be honest with them. You don't want to misrepresent yourself at all. So basically what they're hoping to do now is they want to really stand out to a FAANG company at this point. So we'll kind of pick this apart a little bit and kind of see, like, how does this stand out? So as with most other resumes, I always recommend, like, never ever put your geographic location on here. If you're looking for a job in New York, in the Brooklyn area, then you can say you're in Brooklyn, New York, but you don't have to put your full address, and you certainly don't need your zip code on here. I would take that off. They're not going to mail you anything to this address based on your resume. All they need to know is, like, maybe what time zone you're in if you're going to be, like, working a remote job. But aside from that, they don't need to know where you live at this stage. Let them find out a little bit later on. Or you can just say, I live in New York, or I live in the New York City area, or something like that. Having your email, your phone number on here, those are necessary. If you have a LinkedIn and a GitHub, I would put those on here as well. You just have to be careful about using vertical space here. So the first thing I noticed when I kind of zoom out on here, there's a lot of empty space at the top. There's a lot of empty space down here at the bottom. And so I think we could probably work, and these margins like all around the page are really wide. So I would probably find a way to like maybe like use a little less margin on the sides, and we certainly want to like try to get a little bit closer to the top and bottom without feeling like this is a a full page cram packed with words. We can still spread things out vertically a little bit, just to give a little more visual appeal on the page, just to see a little bit more about like what you've done, what you've worked on, and kind of the skills and so on. So let's zoom in a little bit more here. Languages proficient in, I would take off the word proficient. Just tell me the languages you know. You don't have to tell me what you're proficient in. I will presume proficiency because you've put it on the resume. So the first, like the way that I evaluate the skills block is if you put it on your resume, it's fair game for me to ask you questions. If you put it on the resume, that means you know it well enough to interview in that language. If you only kind of know it, then put it at the very end of the list. So for me, this tells me you're a C# developer who knows Java and you've maybe dabbled in Python. Now, if they're looking for a Python developer, you would put Python at the beginning of the list because you want to look like a Python developer who also knows C# and Java. So this is how you would customize that resume a little bit for the role. So if you're applying for a Python job, you put Python at the beginning. Any of the other like tooling that you've used, like any libraries and so on, any Python related libraries, you're going to put at the front of the list. Because when we read these lists, we also read them from left to right in what I call strength order. So this tells me you know C# better than you know Java better than you know Python. Me personally, I don't know what KDB plus Q is. So sometimes you do need to explain a little bit of what these things are. Now, the fact that you tell me that it's a language, but then later on list all these things again as libraries and frameworks doesn't make sense to me. Because C# is not a library or a framework, neither is Java, and I don't know what KDB plus Q is. Now I kind of want to go look it up. So KDB plus Q. Developing with KDB plus and the Q language. So KDB plus is a column-based relational time series database. Okay, so I would list that as a separate technology because it's a database. Q is like its sort of like version of SQL, I guess, would be my guess. It's like a query language for that database. But that's not a language. Like KDB plus is the database itself. Q is its language. So I think you could probably rearrange this stuff a little bit. Again, for tooling, Windows and Linux, most companies aren't going to care which operating systems you use. Most production systems are going to be like a Linux or Unix variant, and they're going to expect that you've got experience with that. If you work on a Mac, you're going to be familiar with Unix-based systems. If you've used Docker, you're probably going to be familiar with Linux. If you develop on a Windows platform, that's fine. They don't care how you get your work done, as long as you can get your work done. The fact that you use Git is fine. If you've also used GitHub, I would probably want to see that somewhere on the top of this page here as well. Jenkins is great. Zephyr is fine. But yeah, I think this libraries and tools, I think we could clean that one up a little bit. All right. But as far as libraries and tools, I would want to know like for C#, you're going to probably be using .NET. For Java, you might be using like Spring. For Python, are you using like Django or Flask or Fast API? Like what frameworks or libraries are you using with the languages? So right away, this second point here under skills doesn't tell me anything. You're also putting other headings in here like experience and education. I'd probably want to see one up here explicitly calling out skills. Me personally, I don't like these being centered on the page. I think it's fine if you want to put your contact info centered on the page. Just be careful again about how much vertical space it's taking up. But these headers, I would typically just put on the left. Just keep the formatting simple on this. I would probably shorten the dates on here to be just 3-letter months. So it's just JUL 2019, and then put a space in between the dash on here. Just it'll separate those out a little bit horizontally. Global Markets IT, at some company, that's fine. Developed a website for traders to adjust trading information and ticker data using Java, JavaScript, and ZK framework. So right here, you're telling me that you've worked in JavaScript, but you didn't list it as a skill up here. So to me, that would tell me that you barely did any JavaScript because you weren't confident enough to list it as a skill as something that you would interview in. You use the ZK framework for the front end. I've never heard of the ZK front-end framework, but you also don't list that up here. So again, how much experience did you actually have? Because in this bullet point, you felt it was noteworthy to tell me that you've used that technology, but you don't list any of that technology up here in your skills block. And so to me, this feels like a mismatch of, do you know it well enough to put on the resume or not? If you've dabbled in it, that's okay. But by listing it here, it tells me that I could ask you questions about JavaScript. I could ask you questions about like, oh, tell me about the ZK. Like, how does that differ from like React or an Angular kind of framework? And I'm going to hope that you can answer that kind of question. If you don't have experience in those other frameworks, that's fine. You can say, I've never used React or Angular, so I can't compare them. That's okay. Like you can say that as an answer. That's fine. But if you've used that framework for some period of time, I mean, you were there on that job for almost 3 years. So I would probably have some questions about this. QDB plus Q for the backend. Again, is that a backend framework? I mean, I had to go look up the fact that this was a time series database. If you've used other databases, I would just add like a whole other point up here of like the databases that you've used. Have you used Postgres, MySQL, Mongo? And then you could list this KDB on here as far as like the actual technology that you've used. Designed and developed. And then kind of going back to what I typically tell people about bullet points, like don't make the bullet points so long that it wraps on another line. I think you could probably just put all the technologies as a single bullet point and just say technologies used on the job. Boom, 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 and just list those out. But I don't think you need to like explain all of that in each bullet point this way to where it like ends up wrapping around those lines. You want to try to keep your bullet points relatively short. I like that you're kind of giving me like a user empathy statement here. Like you're telling me why, like who this project was for, as opposed to just, yeah, I worked at some financial thing and I used Java and JavaScript. It's like, well, to do what? So I like that you're telling me here, like what aspect of the business you actually were involved in. I think that actually stands out really nice on a resume. Designed and developed testing frameworks for various services in C# using SpecFlow, MSTest, WCF. List that stuff up above. If you've used them well enough that you can speak to them in a bullet point here, then they should be in that skills block at the top. Set up Jenkins pipelines to automate deployment and testing. That's fine. Again, bullet points don't have to be grammatically correct sentences, and so they don't need to end in a period. I would take the periods off the end of this. Designed and developed testing frameworks for various services. I would take this off and just say I designed and developed testing frameworks in C#, comma, SpecFlow, comma, MSTest, comma, WCF. You don't need the word and. You don't need the word in. You can take a lot of those kinds of things out of there. All right, so the next job you had was as a consultant, and it looked like you were doing that for quite a while. Now, you give me a month that you started. You don't give me a month when it ended. So that looks a little inconsistent. Like, did you do this through the end of 2019? Did it overlap this job? Did you leave this consulting job to take this full-time job? So I would want to see a month of when you ended this. Listen to clients' issues. Well, that's what you do as a consultant. So this becomes redundant. Find solutions concerning setting up VPNs. I would take all of this out. Or just say you were like engineered solutions using VPNs and Wi-Fi to ease workload on more specialized personnel. Like that's very buzzwordy and doesn't tell me anything of value as far as what you did. You like this right here that I'm highlighting, solutions, setting up VPNs and connecting to Wi-Fi. That's the only thing of value in this whole sentence. And so I would find a way to reduce that and then explain this a little bit more about like what it is you did as far as like VPNs. Troubleshoot with technology to elevate complex issues. Again, I think you're over explaining a lot of this, and bullet points certainly shouldn't be close to 2 lines long. So troubleshoot with technology and elevate complex issues to the proper specialist using the Salesforce ticketing system. So again, like Salesforce is like capital S. I don't think it's a capital F, but like make sure that you're capitalizing things properly. To add solutions to novel issues to a database that's referenced by other employees. This almost sounds like you built an FAQ or like a knowledge base kind of thing. So I think you could summarize a lot of this and just say like troubleshooting notes added to knowledge base to or you want to you want like your action verb to kind of start at the beginning, like what was the impact of this? So you could say like improved employee documentation by putting troubleshooting notes in a knowledge base or a company-wide knowledge base or something like that. Because you're telling me a lot of words here without really explaining like what was the impact, what was the benefit of this, how did you make the company better in some way, as opposed to just I did this thing on the job. So these bullet points, you need to give me like some kind of action verb, quantify it if you can, like how many things did you make? Like was it 10, was it 100, like how many of these things, and then what was the impact? Like did people say that, you know, it made it like a drastic improvement on their workflows? You want to explain those kinds of things. Vertically, you're taking up 4 lines of text for this job. I think you could probably break a lot of this stuff down into 4 bullet points that tell me a whole lot more about what you did, how you did, and the impact that it had, as opposed to 2 really long sentences. Give me 4 shorter bullet points explaining a little bit more about like what you did and what that impact was. You got education a little bit less, and then you've got project work under there. So Bachelor of Arts in New York, your major was computer science and Japanese. That's cool. Relevant courses, operating systems, discrete data structures. So, I mean, again, these like relevant courses when it comes to computer science. I mean, if you've got a bachelor's in computer science, I mean, I can kind of presume that you've done data structures and algorithms and operating systems. Like that's kind of a given. If there's something specific about those courses that you've done that are important for my company to know, I would call those out. Like, did you do something with machine learning or AI or something like that that my company is going to care about? Did you do a class about that? Did you do a class about ethics? If my company is involved in ethics and you did it like an ethical hacking class or something like that, put that on here because that's relevant to me. Operating systems, data structures, and algorithms are so generic in nature that it's not worth having on the resume. That's kind of implied as part of being a computer science degree. I don't think that you specifically need to call those out. So for projects, you did independent project. I like that you're calling out like, was this a solo project or a group project? I like that you've got that on there. I think if you've got these up on GitHub or some like Bitbucket or something like that, where I can actually go look at the code, I would be adding links to those. And if it's something that you can actually publish online, give me like a live link of where I can go experience what you've built. That's way more powerful than just letting me know that I once upon a time I worked on a project. It's like, okay, well, you know, I guess I have to believe you because it's on your resume, but if you can put a GitHub link on there, now I can actually see your code and I can see how you built that code. If you give me a website, now I can go experience what you built. And now I know that not only can you code, you can build working applications as well. So it just adds a lot more sort of power and oomph to what you've built here. But again, a lot of these bullet points are really, really long. So let's go through these a little bit. Using Interior API. So API should be caps. To pull income and cash flow statements along with stock ticker data and conducted ratio analysis over time through a JSON library. So JSON is all caps. So through the JSON library, like which JSON library? Which language did you use? Like you don't really tell me anything about the technologies, like the overall technologies of how you built this project. So when you put project work on a resume, here's what I like to see. I like to see the name of the project and whether it was solo or group project, and you've done that. The date, okay, having the date on there is fine. It lets me know that this project was more recent than these other ones. The fact that you graduated in May 2019 means that these were done in your sophomore year, which is fine. So my expectation is probably going to be a little bit lower because you were still learning a lot of things. But I like seeing a user empathy statement right away. Like, what was this project about? Like, what does the end user use this project for? So you're telling me that you're pulling income and cash flow statements, but like, so what does the user actually do with that? You're telling me down here at the very end, meant to be a simple program that's accessible for student financial clubs. Okay. That compares financial data of several companies over the time of a year. Okay. So there's your user empathy statement. users can research company financial data. That's a user empathy statement. So tell me that first. This tells me that as a developer, you care about the end user, that you understand the impact that this has for a user. That's going to stand out way more, especially for this particular person, because they mentioned that they wanted a job at a FAANG company. FAANG companies care a great deal, especially Amazon, about the customer experience. It's all about the customer experience. How do we make that absolutely amazing? Right now, you're not really selling me on, like, I built this for the user to make a really amazing user experience. Other than, down here at the very bottom, it's meant to be a simple program. Well, was it a simple program, or was it meant to be? Because saying that it meant to be, like I meant to do my laundry, the subtext of that is, but I didn't. So I think you do need to be a little bit careful about like how you sort of word things on a resume. So I would start with that user empathy statement. What is this project for? Like, how is the end user going to use this project? From there, then, give me one bullet point of, if it's a solo project, your first bullet point should be like a major theme that you learned about the project. Like, what did you learn about this? You learned about consuming APIs to manipulate financial and stock data. The second bullet point could be like something fun and geeky. The third bullet point should be your tech stack. Show me all the languages, frameworks, libraries, and whatever that you use to accomplish this project. Because right now, I have no idea how you actually built any of this other than this one you did in the Go language, which incidentally, you also don't list as a skill up here. So are you still using Go? Did you only use it for like that one project and then you never touched it again? Again, these things don't really line up. So you want to be really clear about that, especially if you're going to go work at or apply at Google, for example. The fact that you've used their technology is going to stand out to them. So you want that to be really like a lot more prominent. So the first bullet point is, what was a major learning goal of the project? The second bullet point is, tell me something fun and geeky that you did with the data or the libraries, or something really interesting about how you mash this stuff up. And then the third bullet point is just tell me the tech stack that you used. Company sentiment app, use the Scrapey library. So I know that you've used Python for this, to crawl through financial news websites and scrape articles for a straightforward application. So again, like you're using a lot of buzzwordy stuff here that's not going to mean anything to a hiring manager. Scrape articles for a straightforward application to keep students on top of news pertaining to organizations of interest. So your user empathy statement on this is, users can scrape financial news websites to research companies. But research companies for what end? Like to apply for jobs or just to see financial data about a company. And then the first bullet point then is going to be what project, or like what was your main learning goal here? This project taught me how to scrape website data that didn't have an API. Second bullet point, analyzed unorganized data using Bayesian algorithms and natural language processing. And then the third bullet point is like Python, Scrapey, blah, 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 like Beautiful Soup or whatever you use to like pull all this stuff together. And then Discord greeting bot. So contributing again is present tense. So you want to use like past tense for these things. So contributed to the development of a robot using Golang that moderates and replies to moderators. So instead of calling it a robot, I would call it like a chat bot. I think that that's going to be a little more clear in modern terminology as far as what you did. So contributed to the development of, I would say like contributed code to a chatbot, to a Golang based chatbot for moderating replies or something like that. Using the Discord API, the robot tokenizes the messages of users, looks for keywords, sends messages on moderator-only channels detailing the infraction to allow for adequate moderation 24 hours a day. Again, you're using a lot of vertical space here that I think you could break this into multiple bullet points to really get more of the point across of like what it was that you built and what the impact of that was. But if you could also, kind of quantify that a little bit and say like, this was the impact that it had, like it saved moderators a bunch of time, assisted, do you have any stats on how many messages that it contributed? that it did this analysis on, things like that, like moderated 10,000 messages a day or something, or was it like 10 messages a day? Like, I would love to see some kind of impact on that. Student activities: acquired foundational knowledge in asset and wealth management, learned about current and future trends in the industry through a semester-long web seminar. So this doesn't feel so much as an activity as it is education. So I would actually list this as education. So it was like a semester-long seminar that you attended. This sounds like kind of a regular sort of class that you attended. I wouldn't list that as an activity. Acquired foundational knowledge in asset and wealth management. I mean, if it was like a wealth management sort of business, like you're learning how to like promote, you know, asset management or whatever to other people to like get them to sign up for something, then that's a little bit different. But if you were a student, then I would not list this as an activity. I would actually list this as part of your education. Overall, though, this feels very strongly like you've got a really solid background. Like, to me, reading through this resume, you've got a solid background in like financial systems and looking at like research data and financial data and stock, you know, information and things like that. To really stand out to a FAANG company, though, how is that going to be useful to a FAANG company? You know, right now, none of those FAANG companies are in, like they're public companies, and so they are on the stock market, but none of them really build applications for the stock market. And so I think to stand out to a FAANG company, I think you need to tell me a little more of the nitty gritty, like low level stuff that you actually build, and the languages and the technologies that you use on a regular basis, and talk about the impact of speed and performance and optimizations and things like that, but the overall user impact of what it was that you built and how that impacted the end user. You know, like scraping through thousands of websites and the impact that had, or, you know, how long did it take your project to actually go through and like scrape data for a particular company? You know, did it take milliseconds? Did it take hours? Like, how long did that actually take? FAANG companies are going to be caring about those low-level details about what you learned and how that's going to be helping their business. So I think your resume needs to promote a lot more of that, as opposed to just, these are some sort of core projects that I worked on. If you really want to stand out and really get an interview with them, you need to explain a whole lot more about the low-level aspects of what you built. How big was your code? You know, how fast was your code? How well did it perform? How did you optimize it? How did you maintain it over time to get even faster? What other libraries did you consider? You know, for example, the stuff that you did in Python, could you rewrite that in C# or Go or Java to be even more performant, because it's a compiled language as opposed to an interpreted language? Like, yeah, maybe some of those libraries don't exist in those other languages, but there are, you know, is there a way that you could kind of combine those efforts to like speed it up even more? I think that those would be really good ways to sort of stand out to a FAANG company. What's up, Hagu? Good to see you in chat. There is no more giveaway. The giveaway was all last month. I'm still raising money for that diversity in tech fundraiser that you see over here. I'm going to switch back over to my other view. And so people are still welcome to donate. But yeah, we're not doing any more giveaways until probably October. And we're trying to figure out like what we're going to give away there. So I'm 3D printing various things. I want to get into more practical prints over the summer, get into some multicolor prints. Lately, I'm like printing these little fidget cubes, these little infinite folding kind of fidget cubes. So one of the things that I've got over on MakerDeck right now is a whole tray of like all these blocks and hinges that you can then assemble yourself. And we're going to be printing those in different colors so that people can kind of assemble their own little sort of kit. I don't know that I'll do this as the giveaway in October, because this isn't as exciting as a 3D printed dragon. But I like the idea of like a stocking stuffer kind of thing. Like if you want to buy like a bunch of these things as stocking stuffers and like let people assemble them themselves, or you assemble it and put it in their stocking or something like that. If you celebrate, you know, those kinds of holidays, I mean, that's really up to you. So we're still trying to narrow down like what we want to do as that giveaway, but there won't be any more giveaways until October. Cool. Well, we've been going for about an hour. My primary goal today was just the resume reviews, and we got through those. Not many folks hanging out in chat today, and that's all fine. It's a Sunday morning. people are kind of chill. I'm a little bit tired. I was up pretty late last night trying to finish up some of the clips and stuff for the automatic generation of like the YouTube videos and podcast audio. Didn't make as much progress as I'd hoped. But yeah, I'm gonna get off the screen for the rest of the day and go hang out with the kiddos. We're gonna go find some fun stuff to do and get haircuts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I'll call it there. Let's go find somebody that we can go raid into. I think Loyal Moses is still going. Let me do Twitch TV, Loyal Moses. He's been going for like 18 hours now. Yeah, he's been going for like 18 hours on his stream. He's given away tons of stuff. He's given away a resin printer, a 3D engraver, like a laser engraver. He's given away tons of 3D filament and printer nozzles and stuff like that. So I may go raid over there just if folks want to get in on some free giveaways. He's giving stuff away every single month. Hey, Stack Robot, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Not sure if you were one of the resumes that I reviewed, but hopefully it was helpful for you. So yeah, we'll probably just go right over to Loyal. He's also got something where if I host his channel, I get put in another giveaway for some other stuff. He's giving away like more filament and nozzles and stuff like that. Not that I need any more filament. I got like 100 spools of filament that I got to try to burn through this summer as it is. So that's part of why I want to get into the multicolor thing, just so I can use up like remaining little samples of things. But yeah, I appreciate everybody's involvement with the Dragon giveaway. It was a huge success. The fact that we raised almost $1,100 was great. I upped our goal, so hopefully before the end of June we can raise just a tiny bit more. Again, I'm matching all that money, and then my employer is going to match $1,500 of everything that we've raised. So I'm already maxing out their match on that. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I'm actually going to meet those folks in a couple of weeks and give them the check. So I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, I think we'll go hang out on Loyal Moses' stream. He's giving away stuff every hour on the hour. So I'm not sure what his giveaway right now is going to be. Let's go see what his next giveaway is. His next giveaway is a nozzle. So like if you're into 3D printing, he's giving away a nozzle. So I think we'll just go right over there, and we'll go hang out over there. You do need to be a follower if you want to be in chat. To get in the giveaway and stuff like that. So we'll raid over there, and then I'll probably just host his channel for the day, and yeah, we'll call it from there. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the resume reviews. Again, if you want a resume review, you're welcome to submit that. Here's the link over here if you're watching this on YouTube later. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate getting the exposure. Let other people know that I do resume reviews and I help with career advice and stuff like that on Twitch. I may try a live stream to YouTube at some point and just see what kind of sort of additional uptick we see in viewership and subscriptions and things like that. I'd love to hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, both on Twitch and on YouTube. Not subscribers on Twitch, but like followers on Twitch at least. But if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Go check out my other videos. I got lots of stuff on how to do leak code a little bit smarter. I got lots of really helpful advice on there, lots of resume reviews, lots of little short videos that you can watch, lots of long streams if you want like really in-depth conversations. I've had lots of guests on the stream. And also, again, if you're part of 100 Devs, I would love to have you on my stream over the next couple of months. I really want to have a bunch of guests on my stream that are going through 100 Devs and talk to them about what their journey into tech is, what their hope and their aspiration is, and how we can teach them a little bit about speaking about the value that they bring to a company. So. Hey Blacksmith Pop, good to see you. So we're about to raid over to Loyal's channel, so we'll see you over there.
I am Blueberry 91. Thanks for calling.